If you have any friends who are Tennessee fans, Auburn fans, even Georgia Tech fans, you've probably heard them say recently that they are closing the gap on Georgia. Now, I hope that when they said that, you gave them a little pity laugh and pat them on the head and say, thanks for the laugh. But no, it's not happening. It's actually nowhere near happening. And I'm going to break down why in this video. And I thought that even though Tennessee is not a traditional rival, it kind of feels like it, right? Tennessee fans hate Georgia with a passion. That is the biggest game they have on the schedule. There's no doubt about it. And I didn't include Florida because Florida just doesn't matter right now. They're not beating Georgia anytime soon. They're not relevant. And that's a game every year that Georgia fans can kind of pencil in a victory. And I mean, I'm just stating facts here. That's what this video is all about. They're going to sound like opinions, but I'm saying facts for the next 9 minutes in this video, okay? But I did want to start with Tennessee because that feels like the biggest, loudest, most desperate fan base right now. They are hungry as ever to not only be relevant in the national championship conversation, but to beat Georgia. It kills them knowing that Georgia has passed them as an all-time program. It kills them that Kirby Smart owns them. And it kills them that they will never see the series tied again, right? They will always have a losing record to Georgia in the head-to-head series. They have to own that now, and they're not happy about it. They think they're closing the gap, and I'm going to explain why. This is what a Tennessee fan is going to say. They're going to start with the quarterbacks, right? And they have done an excellent job. Josh Heupel knows quarterbacks. They are recruiting at an elite level at quarterback. I mean, that's just a fact, right? They've got Nico at quarterback right now. I don't know his last name. He hasn't done enough for me to take the 5 seconds out of my day to look up how to pronounce his last name. So right now, until he beats a respectable team not named Iowa, I'm going to call him Nico. But he's a starting quarterback at Tennessee, and he's really good. I've said that since they were recruiting him. I said this guy might be a problem if Tennessee lands him. They offered him a crazy NIL deal, which, by the way, is keeping Tennessee and Auburn and Georgia Tech from falling even backwards. They all need NIL. And they used NIL to sign Nico. Again, question mark on the last name. If I try to say it right now, I'm going to butcher it, and I don't want to do that. I'm a nice guy. But Tennessee has him right now, who I think is going to have a really good year. They've got George McIntyre, a 4-star quarterback committed, and they've got the #1 quarterback in the country committed in the 26th class. They're recruiting wide receivers at a very high level. That's where they spend their NIL money on. It's quarterbacks and receivers and the offensive line, right? Georgia's been using their NIL funds, if you want to call it that, on the trenches, occasionally in the secondary, occasionally at linebacker, but they are using, NIL for offensive linemen, defensive linemen, and to get guys coming back to school. It's not cheap to win over Michael Williams again, who could have transferred and made more money elsewhere. It's not easy to sign an elite defensive back in KJ Bolden or Ellis Robinson when you just missed on Caleb Downs, right? You've got to use the NIL. But the Tennessee program is getting better. They are heading in the right direction. But are they closing the gap against Georgia? No. What are we talking about? Georgia wipes the floor with Tennessee. So if Georgia only beats Tennessee by 14, yeah, maybe they're closing the gap a little bit. But I don't see Tennessee beating Georgia this year or next year. Maybe in 3 years, right? But Georgia's going to have to take a step back if Tennessee wants to beat Georgia. If Georgia stays where they are and keeps improving and keeps recruiting at an elite level and signing #1 classes like they did in 2024, Tennessee's not beating Georgia anytime soon unless they play a perfect ball game and Georgia shoots themselves in the foot over and over and over again. But I do think Tennessee is on the way up. Are they closing the gap against Georgia, even with these elite quarterbacks they're bringing in and these playmaking receivers and a guy like David Sanders, who could be a potential top 10 pick in the NFL at left tackle? They're doing the right things, but they're not closing the gap. Let's move on to Auburn. Auburn is a team, I don't think they're as desperate as Tennessee. That schedule is going to be brutal year after year after year. If they continue to play Georgia every year and obviously play Alabama every year. But Hugh Freeze knows what he's doing. He is a very good recruiter. He's kind of a slime ball in a way, but listen, this is college football. If you're a college football fan, you want your head coach to either be a little bit of a slime ball or a dictator. Hugh Freeze, I would put in the slime ball category. I'd put Kirby Smart in the dictator category. He runs that program with an iron fist. It is his way or the highway. And he works his players and his staff really hard. It's hard to work for him. It's hard to play for him because of the expectations and standards that he has. And again, and that's what makes a good head coach. You got to have one or the other, slime ball or dictator. Hugh Freeze, I think, again, a little slime ball category. And I don't mean this to be derogatory. It's going to come off that way. But what he did at Ole Miss was the blatant cheating there and all that stuff. He's a perfect fit for Auburn. He's bringing in big-time wide receivers. I don't think he has a quarterback right now that he believes in. They got to figure out the quarterback position. But they almost beat Georgia last year. Tennessee hasn't come close to beating Georgia in the last 7 years. You got to remember, Georgia's got a 7-game win streak, I believe, over all these teams. Tennessee, Auburn, and Georgia Tech, who I will find time to talk about at the end because they are doing what they need to improve as well. But Auburn, they're at least making Georgia earn it. They're making Georgia work for it. They're making Alabama earn it at the end. They're just coming up short. They've got a loser mentality. They don't have winning DNA like Georgia does. They've got losing DNA. And they're playing teams hard. They've got a lot of talent. And they are going to get better and better. It may not look like that because they do have a tough schedule, and it's not going to be easy. And even when they do win games against quality opponents, they're not going to blow them out. But they have to start winning those close games at the end instead of losing them. Maybe that'll start this year, but they're not closing the gap. Even with their eighth ranked recruiting class in 2024, that's very good for Auburn. And they brought in, I think Walker White is a 4-star quarterback, but it's the receivers they're bringing in and the defenders. They signed several guys that Georgia did recruit or had on the commit list at one point or, pushed for. And Auburn landed them. They've got guys. They've got to start winning. They need to continue to build that culture in that environment. Are they closing the gap when they have the 8th ranked recruiting class and Georgia has the 1st in 2024? No. They have 0 5-stars committed in the 25 class. Don't tell me Auburn is closing the gap with Georgia. It's not. They're playing Georgia tough, right? It is a big game. It's the second biggest game they have every year. So, of course, they're going to play their heart out. Are they closing the gap? If that means beating Georgia, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. They might close the gap with 4 points and lose by 4 or 3 instead of 7 or 8, right? So if that's closing the gap, sure, give that to them. But you can laugh about it on the way. But I do think Auburn and Tennessee and Georgia Tech are heading in the right direction. They are getting better as a program. My hair's off. It's a bad morning. Sorry about that. I don't look like a 5-star today. Normally I do, and I apologize if I don't. But we're going to keep rolling. Georgia Tech, they just signed a 5-star offensive tackle using NIL funds, which is allowed. They got Josh Petty, a very good player out of Roswell. They got Damola Ajudon, a guy that I thought Georgia was in on and that Georgia liked. I'm not saying they didn't like him. I'm saying Georgia Tech landed him. He's a promising offensive tackle out of Duluth. Isaiah Canyon, a playmaking, speedy wide receiver from Warner Robins, they signed in the last class. They're signing a lot of, I think, good quality in-state guys who have 3 stars next to their name. They're not good enough to play at Georgia. They're not good enough to play at Alabama or Clemson or Tennessee or whatever. And that's fine, right? But they're going to Georgia Tech, and I think it's a good spot for all that. Brent Key knows what he's doing. That guy's been following me on social media for years. At least he did. I don't know if he still does, but I know he used to. He used to come to your boy, to Coach DeBray, to find out who the under-the-radar sleeper wide receiver prospects or whoever prospects in the state of Georgia. Brent Key was going to me. I mean, he followed me for all his high school Georgia football news and Georgia Bulldog news. I mean, it is what it is. They are getting better. I think they could beat Florida State this Saturday. I do. I think I like their quarterback. They signed Aaron Philo, who could be the next guy who just lit up the stat sheet at Prince Avenue. Pass-happy offense, but the guy made a lot of plays and a lot of big throws. I think Georgia Tech, Tennessee, Auburn, they're all heading in the right direction. I think they'll all be a little bit better than they were last year and could be better in 2025 than they are in 2024. I'm not trying to hate on them. Again, I'm just bringing facts like I always do. They might sound like an opinion, like opinions. Sorry, I went to Kennesaw State, so again, I'll stumble over my words. But again, I didn't go to Georgia. I'm throwing the facts out there for y'all, right? I just happened to cover the number one program in the country who won 2 out of 3 last national championships, right? That's my standard. That when I look at other programs, I look and say, how far are they away from the top dog, from Georgia? And if you're asking me if Tennessee and Auburn and Georgia Tech are closing the gap on Georgia after they just signed a number one recruiting class and will sign a top 3 recruiting class in 2025, 2025. Kennesaw State. I'm sorry about that. You're wrong. It's not happening. But let them think that. You'll get a nice laugh out of it. You really will. It's funny, but that's what they're thinking. So many fan bases are delusional enough to where they think they're going to beat Georgia sometime soon. And they're going to close the gap and pass Georgia once they finally beat them, whenever that is. It ain't going to be this year. Probably not going to be next year. At some point, Georgia will have to lose to one of these teams, right? I mean, we're not going to beat them forever. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. Get your Bulldog today. I didn't even plug it. collegebronze.com. Number one Georgia Bulldog statue on the market. Get yours today. The football season starts in 2 weeks. Get it today. Promo code DOGPOST. All the information is in the description below in this video. Take advantage of this opportunity. You're not going to find it anywhere else. Get your Bulldog. Leave a comment in the section below. What do you think? Am I crazy wrong? I don't think so. Am I right? Probably. But let me know. Well, let me know that I'm right. I always love that. All right. See you later. Have fun. Have a great day. I'll see you on the next video.